Live at the Democratic National Convention, Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm running with the right crowd.
I hope so. We'll find out. So, Senator, I put you in a group of 15 that were strong progressives based on your original vote on when FISA came up again. And there was 15 senators that came out strongly against it, against the George Bush-Dick Cheney plan. But that was only a group of 15. And then eventually Barack Obama wound up voting with the other side. And he called that a compromise. So, one, do you think it was a compromise? And two, were you discouraged with his vote there?
Look, let's talk a little bit about the history of FISA. I sit on the Intelligence Committee. One of my older kids calls it the so-called Intelligence Committee. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, it is possible to fight terrorism ferociously and still protect people's individual liberty. The Bush administration has tried to portray to America that you can really have only one or the other, and they've been very successful at it. They basically suggest that unless you go along with their approach, which encroaches on people's rights, oh my goodness, Al-Qaeda is basically going to show up the next day. So I think given what's happened now, what we ought to look forward to is Barack Obama being president, because he said he will come back to this subject. This is not the last word. We'll have an opportunity to strike a better balance. I know folks are frustrated. I know a lot of progressive folks are frustrated. I followed this debate closely. And look, on the Intelligence Committee, the vote was 13-2. And I was one of the two who opposed this legislation, and I feel strongly about it. I think, frankly, when you ask people why we're fighting terrorism so aggressively, the reason we are is to protect the rights that are guaranteed by a strong FISA bill.
Senator Wyden, that's why I bring it up to you, because I know you were on the right side of that throughout. Okay, I knew you were one of the two senators that on the Intelligence Committee that voted against what was really a legislation written by Dick Cheney, literally. So, but that's what frustrates so many of us. And what people are looking forward to, and what they were looking forward to in 2006, is if the Democrats recaptured Congress, that we were finally going to get a new regime. And we didn't, honestly. We didn't.
Wasn't for a lack of effort. I mean, think about what happened the week before the recess. We've been trying to pass legislation to rein in the oil speculators. This is serious stuff. You look at the tax law, the fact of the matter is, under federal tax law, there is an incentive for speculators to bid up the price of oil. If you're running a trucking company and you buy an oil future because you're going to need some oil for the trucking company, you pay a lot higher tax rate than you would if you're buying an oil future for your hedge fund. We're trying to change that, and we just don't have enough votes. I know after the 2006 election, everybody said, oh, my goodness, the Democrats, won, they picked up some seats, everything's going to change. In the United States Senate, unfortunately, you need 60 votes in order to move ahead. We've never been able to do it, and that's why I want to give a plug on your show to Jeff Merkley, the Speaker of the Oregon Legislature, who's going to be one of those votes next year. He's going to be our new senator from Oregon.
Gordon Smith, of course, at this point is pretending to be a moderate. It's funny how he came around to that right before the elections. But what was his voting record before 2006?
I got to practice where I don't run down anybody else. I came to the United States Senate largely because I took negative commercials off the air. The fact is, Jeff Merkley, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's civil liberties, whether it's working families, he's going to be a co-sponsor of my Bipartisan Healthy Americans Act, the first bipartisan universal coverage health bill in the history of the Senate. I want to see him my partner.
Well, a lot of people would say, and I don't want to phrase it as a lot of people would say, I say, okay, that you don't always need 60 votes. Harry Reid didn't even need to bring up that FISA legislation. It was legislation that the Republicans wanted brought up, and if you guys didn't bring it up at all, you wouldn't need the 60 votes.
The fact is, the Bush administration, particularly on national security issues, has been very skillful at framing this issue as either you go along with their skewed approach of people's individual privacy, or Americans are going to suffer. Americans are going to die. Americans are going to be vulnerable to terrorists. And we just haven't had in the White House, particularly with the presidential bully pulpit, somebody who can engage the American people on what this fight is all about. The reason we fight terrorists so aggressively is because we want to protect the individual liberties. And we're going to be able to do that in 2009.
We're talking to Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon, and he's one of the true progressives in the Senate, and he fights hard on all these issues. So we're talking to you as an ally, okay? And Senator, what is the frustration behind a lot of this is it seems fundamentally Democrats don't get that they need to make the case. It's not, hey, oh, well, the Republicans already framed this issue, so it's a loser issue, so let's negate it by giving in, which honestly I thought is what Barack Obama did on Friday.
I will tell you, we made that case again and again on the floor of the Senate. I've been writing op-ed pieces about the Washington Post, was able actually to get some protection for Americans who travel overseas. This is something that's outrageous. Shouldn't a soldier who's wearing the uniform of the United States have some protections when they travel overseas in terms of their civil liberties? And there is no senator, no matter how many speeches we give, no matter how much time we spend in the media and cable shows and writing op-eds and the like, that can contend with the presidential bully pulpit on national security issues. I wanted this debate to come out very differently, and that's why there were only two of us on the Senate Intelligence Committee who opposed it. I wish it had gone differently. I also want listeners to know there's a real reason to support Senator Obama, because at least we will have a chance this January to change some of the misguided, flawed, skewed policies of the Bush administration.
I want to come back to the bully pulpit in a second, but I've got to ask you, why did Senator Rockefeller allow Dick Cheney to write that legislation, and why did he push it through?
I think when you look at the intelligence legislation, particularly David Addington, some of these people, in the Cheney shop, they were right at the center of skewing this debate in order to frighten people. For example, there was a congressional recess where they initially passed it, and people asked me, was this an incredibly scary time? Well, I said on the Intelligence Committee, it is a frightening time for our country, but it sure didn't get scary just 2 days before a congressional recess. The administration tried to back that in so they could frame this as a choice either between their flawed approach or Americans being vulnerable. That's what a lot of Democrats have been up against, and Democrats, particularly those in red states, and we have a lot of them, it's a very tough vote.
See, that goes to the core of the issue, because I wrote an article about this, saying, can we get those 15 tough senators, which you're on the list of, progressive fighters, real fighters, can we make that number 50? So that it's not just that we have Democrats, but progressives who are willing to fight. So that goes to the Senator Rockefeller question. Why do senators like Senator Rockefeller buy into that Cheney ideology?
I want folks to understand, in 2004, George Bush won 28 out of 36 Oregon counties. Mm-hmm. I've got 36 counties in my state. We're overwhelmingly a rural, state. George Bush won 28 out of 36 counties, and I've gone into a lot of those counties and been able to defend my approach on FISA and the war and a lot of these flashpoint issues where the Bush administration has been so good at dividing the caucus. So I think with presidential leadership, we'll have a lot more allies. We'll be able to frame the debate instead of, in effect, reacting to what the White House has been doing.
We're talking to Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon. Senator, let me ask you about the bully pulpit that you brought up. You're right. It is a very important advantage to be able to have the president set the tone and set the talking points that the press goes along with. But it is not just a presidential issue. Tom DeLay, when the Republicans captured the Congress, went into CNN, pulled the heads of CNN out and said, hey, listen, we think you're the communist news network. That's what our constituents are telling us, okay? And we need you to be more, quote-unquote, fair to us. And what happened coming out of that meeting is a lot more Republicans got on TV. All of a sudden you started CNN parroting Republican talking points, and they went along. So now that you guys control the Senate, and it looks like after 2008 you're going to have an even larger majority, and you're going to control Congress as well, again in larger majorities, is it time to sit down with the press? Not just from a presidential side. I mean, John McCain could win.
That's what I've been doing. You talk, for example, about progressive issues. I mentioned I've got the first bipartisan universal coverage health bill in the history of the Senate. 8 Democrats, 8 Republicans. Senator Obama has got a lot of the same principles that I've been interested in. The fact of the matter is the insurance company model as it relates to health care in this country is inhumane. It is based on cherry picking. The insurance companies go out and cherry pick to just find healthy people and send the sick people over to government programs more fragile than they are. In our Healthy Americans legislation, we changed that. We ban discriminating against people with pre-existing conditions. Senator Obama makes those kinds of changes in his proposals. So you're going to see us on the offensive, both in the Congress, where you've been asking, and at the White House.
Now, the thing is, all of these great positions, and the reason I keep focusing on this, all these great positions die on television, and Associated Press as well, and in the press. Because if you can't get the press to print your side of it, it's so hard to sell it to the American people. Because as you lay out that case, it's a very convincing case. But unfortunately, the press doesn't allow you to rule that make that case as effectively.
I think we'll help ourselves, for example, by simplifying it. One of the things I make the point of when people ask, how are you going to pay for universal coverage? I said, look, I take away the tax breaks for high flyers buying Cadillac health services. I take those tax breaks away, and I give that money in tax relief to the middle income and the lower middle income. That's the kind of stuff people can understand.
But does Senator Reid and the Democratic caucus understand that they need to be much harder on the press to cover it from your perspective? Not from your perspective, but from an objective perspective.
I think you will see us on the offensive next Congress, both in terms of the White House. We're going to have a lot of new friends, people like Jeff Merkley, a new senator from Oregon. When we do that, both on revisiting FISA, universal health coverage, we have tried 12 separate times to get the tax breaks back for renewable energy. We just couldn't get the votes because the Republicans said we're not going to allow that kind of measure.
That's the perfect issue. If Republicans filibustering to make sure that oil companies get billions of dollars in the middle of their record profits. See, that should have been covered by the press ad nauseum. So when it's not, you guys tried 12 times. You can't blame you guys. You did.
Harry Reid has supported a lot of progressive energy positions. I don't know if you're aware, but in the last Congress, I filibustered for almost 5 hours in order to force the oil companies to vote on a measure I had to cut the subsidies they get for drilling on public land. Harry Reid said, go on out there, make your case. I spent 5 hours on it. We showed that the Republicans essentially didn't want to allow a vote on an unbelievable proposition. Or these subsidies began when the price of oil was $19 a barrel. The day I filibustered, the price of oil was over $70 a barrel. We've seen it well over $130 a barrel for a decent chunk of this year. So he has been supportive of a lot of progressive positions.
All right, Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon, thank you so much for joining us on the Young Turks.
The Young Turks rock.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back on the Young Turks.